Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Eye Through Health interview. Today I'm joined by Dr. Richard Bedlack, who is the chair of our activity Slowing Disease Progression and Optimizing Quality of Life for Patients with ALS. Since this activity was recorded last June, there have been some new updates in ALS, and Dr. Bedlack is here today to fill us in. So thanks very much for joining today.
It's good to be back.
Absolutely, glad to have you back. To start off, would you like to introduce yourself and share what you do?
Sure, I'm a neurologist and neuromuscular specialist, and my current title is Stewart Hughes and Went Distinguished Chair of ALS at Duke University. So, in this role, I lead the Duke ALS program, which includes a clinic, 20 clinicians taking care of about 550 people living with ALS, and also a research program.
Amazing. And we really enjoyed talking with you on the webinar last year and hearing your insights. So since this was recorded last June, have there been any new developments in the ALS treatments and trials that you covered in the activity?
Yeah, I mentioned in the activity that I was excited about some of the gene therapy that was going on. And so a couple of months after we did our recording, this amazing case series was published in the Lancet. And it basically described what happened to 12 people living with a rare genetic form of ALS called FUS ALS. And these people were treated with an antisense oligonucleotide called jasifusin. And what we saw was a dramatic drop in neurofilament light chain, a biomarker that we talked about that we believe tells us we're on the right track. And so in this particular case, the drop was about 80%, which is even bigger than the drop that we saw with tofersen in the patients with SOD1 ALS. And just as we saw with tofersen, there were a couple of people who had dramatic clinical responses. One person who appeared to have his progression completely halted, and another who experienced a dramatic recovery of lost motor function. So I think that this will soon be our second home run therapy for people with genetic subsets of ALS.
That's fantastic. That's really exciting to hear that there was such a dramatic improvement.
Yeah, I mean, this is how I think we get to cures for ALS as we pick off subsets that we
Yes,
understand.
absolutely. And then is there any other ongoing research that you're looking forward to seeing results of in the near future?
Yeah, there's this really cool thing that started out there called the Longitude Prize in ALS. It was actually started by a person living with ALS in the UK. And it's a contest with a very large financial prize. So it incentivizes teams from around the world to use artificial intelligence to try to find new drug targets, especially targets for people who have the so-called sporadic ALS, where we really don't know why it's there.
Mhm.
And I'm really excited to see, what people are going to come up with. I have a team, so I was asked to join a team that's led by a Broadway musical star living with ALS, and he's connected with Mark Cuban, who is a former owner of the Dallas Mavericks and a star of the TV show Shark Tank. So Mark Cuban is financing our team, and we're working with an artificial intelligence company called PCCI. And so some people are trying to use AI to look in these large databases to figure out what's different in people who are living with ALS versus healthy controls. And some people like us are trying to understand what's different about people who are doing extraordinarily well with ALS, like the very slow progressing patients or the people who are spontaneously recovering from ALS. And so I think probably in the next 6 months or so, you're going to start seeing some public release of results. And I think we're going to have a much better understanding of why ALS happens, why some people do so well with it, and we'll have some brand new targets to go after with therapies.
Absolutely. That's really incredible. So looking forward to seeing results of that. And we'll definitely have to check in again in the future and hear some more about it.
Yeah.
Great. I know you also mentioned the activity that you have a study looking at hope boosting instruments in ALS. Would you like to tell us more about this and other ways that you incorporate hope into your practice?
Yeah. So I've just come to believe that hope is a treatment. Across almost every single disease where it's been studied, people who have more hope are doing better medically. And I think it's underutilized, especially in ALS clinics. So I've spent years trying to figure out how to be the best hope booster. And I've got this multi-step approach, which I talk about in our previous presentation. For people who want to read more of it, there's an editorial that I wrote that's freely available called Stitching Strength. And there's also a documentary short film that someone made about me and this approach called Stitching Strength. And that's showing now across the world at community screenings and film festivals. And there's a website. If you just Google Stitching Strength, it'll come up where you can see where it's going to play next. The thing about my approach, though, that I've realized is that it's not going to be something that everyone can use. And that's because it takes so much time. Like for me, ALS has become my life, really. It's my passion. And not everyone is going to be able to make that same commitment. People have other things in their lives that they may need to spend time on, like their families, for example. I'm lucky that I have a very understanding wife. I don't have any kids, so I can spend as much time on ALS as I want. But I've realized if I'm gonna if I'm gonna make this attractive to others, I have to figure out a way for people to boost hope that's efficient, that doesn't take much time. And so I've got a couple of ideas. One is simply to ask people what they're hopeful about. So we now ask people in our clinic, tell me two or three things that you're hopeful about. And it's kind of amazing how that really changes the direction of a person's visit. Like if all you ask about is a chief complaint, well, you can focus on that person's pain or their constipation or whatever their chief complaint is that day. But if you ask them what they're hopeful about and they tell you, I just want to make it to my daughter's wedding this July, all of a sudden the whole team now can focus on
Mhm.
that goal. Like, where is this wedding? What kind of transportation options do we have? What kind of accommodations are available for this person with this degree of disability? What's the venue going to be like? So it's kind of amazing how it changes the direction of the visit. And I believe it boosts hope scores. And then the other is an instrument called the turbocharged living tool. This was created by a person, a professor at the University of Virginia who had ALS. And he wrote this amazing blog. His name was Dr. James Plews Ogans. And one day he said, I just got back from my clinic. I really appreciated everything they did. But I have to say, I can't help but feel like a failure because my family and I worked so hard. And yet every single measurement that the clinic made was worse. And he said, I wish they would make measurements of other parts of me that didn't have to be affected by the loss of my motor neurons because it would make ALS right-sized. And so he came up with this thing called the turbocharged living tool. It's 12 questions about parts of a person that don't have anything to do with motor neurons that are probably more important than motor neurons, like their sense of humor, their compassion, their creativity. And it only takes about 5 minutes. And when you go through it, it's amazing how someone just their posture changes, the family gets a smile, stories come out about this amazing joke or this amazing act of kindness, and it just makes ALS right-sized. And so we're checking to see if we give those instruments to people, does it boost their hope scores? And do people with ALS who have higher hope scores actually do better medically, like people with other conditions? So that's what we're working on.
That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. It's really powerful to hear about how hope really makes an impact in people's lives. And we'll absolutely link to your website as well in this interview. But do you also have any other resources that you recommend for clinicians just about staying up to date with the evolving treatment landscape in ALS?
Yeah, 10 years ago when I used to give talks like this, I would point people toward a textbook or a new review article. Things are changing so fast that there's no textbook and no review article is not going to be up to date. And so really it's got to be a website. And I think there's two really good websites that stay up to date and explain all the different treatment options, both the evidence-based ones and the experience-based ones. One is called Roon, Roon, and the other is called Your ALS Guide. So those are the ones I would use.
Fantastic. We'll link to those as well. And then as we wrap up here, why would you say those in our audience should watch this activity? How can it help inform their practice and patient care?
Well, I would say there's three reasons. One, ALS is more common than people might think. So the lifetime risk of a person getting ALS is somewhere around 1 in 400. Most of us know at least 400 people now. The world's gotten so much smaller, which means we're all going to know somebody who gets ALS in our lifetime. ALS is also supposed to get a lot more common, unfortunately, in the next 10, 15 years. The prevalence of it is expected to increase by 70%, and that's because of the aging of the world population. So it's going to be something that we all need to know a little bit about. And then finally, there's more treatments now. Like when I started, there wasn't much. There was a handful of things. I mean, now there are literally hundreds of evidence and experience-based treatment options. And so I think everybody should watch it just to get a sense of, what some of the major treatment options are. But most importantly, so that when you come across a person living with ALS, you never again tell them there's nothing that can be done. Now the word should be, hey, we've learned a lot about this disease. There's a lot of things that we can do right now to make your life better and to make it longer. And the future is very exciting. I mean, we're developing home run therapies now that stop or reverse the disease in certain subsets.
Amazing, absolutely. It's definitely exciting to see all the progress that has been made and keep up to date on it. So my last question for you as we close today, just end on a hopeful note. What motivates you personally to continue working in ALS research and care?
It's a question I get asked a lot by family members and friends. Been doing it a long time, and I tell them, hey, listen, we're living in a world right now where the news is often dominated by people doing awful things to each other. And in my job, I get to watch the best that humans can be to each other. I get to see incredible acts of kindness, compassion, humor, and unconditional love. And so I'm inspired every day by what I see in my patients and their families. And the other reason is we're making progress. Like, especially in the past 5 years, I can't believe how much we've learned about this disease and how many new treatment options we have. And I really do believe in the next 5 years, we're going to have more home run therapies. And so that keeps me interested and excited.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Bedlack, for coming on today to share your passion for working in ALS research and for sharing these updates with us. And to everybody listening, be sure to visit i3health.com to view the full activity and claim your free credit. So thanks again, Dr. Bedlack.
Thank you.